Good Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Megan McPherson. Decision 2026 this morning. Right now, we're tracking the latest results in the Minnesota primary just hours after polls closed. We have brand new reaction in the biggest races. First, Minnesota's next governor. In November, Minnesota electing its first woman for governor. Senator Amy Klobuchar taking the DFL ticket by a landslide with 89% of the vote. On the GOP side, Lisa Damoth is the winner with 43% of the vote. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, however, not conceding with 32%. Audrey Russo has more on that race.
November's ballot was pretty much decided before midnight. Now, Republican Minnesota House Speaker Lisa Damoth found out around 10:30 that she had won by a margin of more than 40,000 votes. Now, on the DFL side, those results came in much faster for U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. Take a look at this video. This was from around 8:30 last night. This is when the Associated Press had called the race for her, declaring a landslide victory. Klobuchar didn't have a serious challenger on the DFL side. Damoth, on the other hand, had a tougher fight. She didn't win the state GOP party endorsement ahead of the primary. She didn't have President Trump's endorsement. Now, we spoke to both candidates last night, and both spoke about the need to end fraud, which has become one of the driving issues of this race.
You looked at a quality Leering Center because of the fraud that took place, and we're being laughed at by other places in the country. That is not where we should be.
When it comes to fighting fraud, number one, I'm going to do a top-to-bottom audit of state government, and that means rooting out the waste, fraud, and the abuse.
Now, it's worth noting here that we did speak to former MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell about the race. He has yet to concede, but when we spoke to him, he said that he was willing to support whoever was on the GOP side of the ticket come November. Back to you.
And in the race for U.S. Senate, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan beating Congresswoman Angie Craig for the Democratic nomination 59% to 39%. On the Republican side, former sports broadcaster Michelle Tafoya won with 52% of the vote. And in the Democratic race, Congresswoman Angie Craig conceding to Flanagan overnight. She offered her full support and told those at her watch party to do the same. Flanagan winning by nearly 20 percentage points despite being heavily outspent by Craig. This race one of the most expensive primaries in Minnesota history. Flanagan was endorsed by retiring Senator Tina Smith, along with progressive leaders like Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. If elected in November, she would make history as the first Native American woman to serve in the U.S. Senate. Though Craig is now backing Flanagan, the two clashed during the primary over Minnesota's handling of fraud in social services programs, with Craig warning Republicans could use the issue against her. Here's what Craig had to say about that last night and the message Flanagan had for her supporters after securing the nomination.
Peggy's story is one of grit, of determination, and resolve. The election was a choice between two women, and it's a great damn day to see women running even against each other.
Donald Trump has cost our state far too much already. And we are not about to give Donald Trump another loyal soldier like Michelle Tafoya to take his orders and do his bidding.
And again, on the Republican side, former sportscaster Michelle Tafoya beating party-endorsed candidate Adam Schwarzy by more than 100,000 votes. That result is historic, marking the first time the Republican Party's endorsed U.S. Senate candidate did not win its primary. Tafoya tells us she's ready to, quote, send the career politicians home and tackle fraud. This primary, a major test for an ideological divide within the Democratic Party, and President Trump's influence was also put to the test in several races. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
Hi there. The Wisconsin governor's race is really the big talker of the morning, where the buzzword was electability, and primary voters evidently decided the Democratic Socialist candidate was too much of a risk to be able to win in the November general election in that critical swing state.
We are here tonight. This morning, an upset in the closely watched race for Wisconsin governor, with NBC News projecting David Crowley narrowly defeated Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong in the Democratic primary. Crowley has the backing of the party's establishment wing and argued Hong's positions are too extreme on issues like calling to abolish police, something she says she no longer supports.
We're going to need someone who can build the necessary coalitions and speak to unity, not necessarily division.
Crowley now takes on Republican nominee Tom Tiffany in November. In South Carolina, Senator Darlene Graham is headed for a runoff against GOP Congressman Ralph Norman in the special election to replace her brother, the late Senator Lindsey Graham. Darlene Graham was appointed to hold the seat temporarily, with President Trump backing her in her brother's honor.
He actually said she's better than him. That was hard for Lindsey to say.
While Norman is drawing attention to her lack of experience.
I don't know where she stands on a lot of issues.
I've been accused of not being a politician, guilty as charged. I will spend the next 2 weeks of this runoff meeting with voters and, unlike some politicians, listening to their concerns.
And in Connecticut, 14-term incumbent Congressman John Larson lost his Democratic primary to the former mayor of Hartford, Luke Bronin, who is 3 decades younger and campaigned on the need for generational change in Congress, part of a broader push among Democrats. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Be sure to stick with us. We'll be checking back in on these races and others throughout the show this morning. You can find the latest results on our website, kare11.com/elections. And we're live at the White House this morning, where President Trump is facing another legal setback in his push to reshape election rules. A federal judge ruling Trump's executive order on mail-in ballots violated the Constitution. Trump had directed states to add automated ballot tracking barcodes to envelopes, as well as send a list of voters to the Postal Service. 23 Democratic-led states are also fighting the order. Trump is filing an emergency appeal in that case. Happening today, Minneapolis will get its first look at Mayor Frye's 2027 budget for the city. The mayor's plan reportedly includes big cuts to department budgets and major staff layoffs. The city facing a $33 million deficit right now. The mayor is looking at raising property taxes by double digits, between 11 and 13%. And happening tonight in Chisago County, the North Branch City Council will weigh whether to stop installing flock cameras across the city, just 1 day after West St. Paul ended its contract with the controversial company. Here's a look at where cameras were removed. The city joins Columbia Heights, Duluth, and the Isanti County Sheriff's Office in cutting their contract with Flock. Leaders say there was a lack of understanding about the cameras. Isanti County Sheriff says they've only had the cameras for 4 months, but didn't have enough staff to handle them.
We have 452 square miles that we're patrolling with 3 deputies at a time. And when you're getting 236 flock alerts a day, we simply can't keep up with that volume. And if we can't use this system to its full capacity, and we can't be a more efficient or a more effective law enforcement agency, I can't justify budgeting for that at that point.
Others have raised concerns about data privacy. The sheriff says it's not a problem in his county, adding data searches have to be tied to a specific case number. And this morning, Toyota is recalling more than 500,000 Camry hybrid vehicles in the U.S. over a safety issue. The 2025 and 2026 models have a display error that can deactivate turn signals and hazard lights. Toyota says this can increase crash risks for others who may not see the safety indicators. If you have one of these cars, they say you should bring it to a certified dealership for a free software update. And we're waiting to learn more about the firefighter who died fighting wildfires up north. The Forestry Service says the firefighter was taken to the hospital for a medical emergency yesterday morning. Officials are working to notify family. We know the victim is a contracted firefighter from Alaska. Right now, a convicted cop killer is staying behind bars. Minnesota's Supervised Release Board deferring Ronald Reed's parole decision until next month. Reed was convicted of killing St. Paul police officer James Sackett 20 years ago. At the parole hearing, it was a tie vote on a motion to create a 1-year path towards Reed's release. It is a new era for the Minnesota Vikings. Head coach Kevin O'Connell announcing Kyler Murray will replace J.J. McCarthy as starting QB. Here's Gordon Severson.
The Vikings have a new starting quarterback. They officially announced that Kyler Murray is getting the job, and we talked to fans, and here's what they had to say.
I think he played really good. He definitely outperformed J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz and all the other QBs.
Kyler Murray is just all around the better player.
Definitely hitting the routes. His confidence, he looks confident out there. He was moving pretty well for the little bit that we saw today.
I think it's pretty good because he's always been decent in Arizona, but he never really had a good team like the Vikings. So I think surrounding him by our players is going to make him really good, and Kevin O'Connell obviously, so I like the idea.
I thought he really was fast, quick, and accurate.
Well, I think that's great that they finally nailed it down, and it'll be interesting to see how good he is.
Stick with us. More news and weather is coming up after the break.